Sio Ganali. Hello, friends. Happy to be here with our Wisdom Council and our Grandmother Council, sharing a podcast and telling you what we've been doing this month, how we have been walking, not so much just our talk, but also our walk. And thank you all for joining us. I will call to my ancestors in my native Salagiwe, Paligia Koeskwe, Dancing Heron Dances with Death, Call me Gail, Mayumi Ganaita, Takiosti, on our sacred mountain Adigu, which means helping many people. And we are the people who resisted both removal on the Trail of Tears and the reservation the federal government calls Cherokee, who resisted by hiding in these mountains. And this sacred mountain continues to support appropriate resistance in these times. So we encourage that as well. And I'd like to ask my elder brother, Salagi brother, S.D. Youngwolf, if he would open our gathering with a song at this time, please. I'm not hearing you. Yeah, now. Not hearing you, SD.
You're not hearing it?
Not hearing your drum.
Can you
let me see.
can you turn on original sound, SD?
Okay, let me see.
Okay, just a minute here.
Well, I can't find those settings. Let's see.
Three dots.
Yeah, I didn't see them. Now I see them, but wait a minute. Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Nope. Hey, just a sec. Oh, original sound. Is that okay now?
That's
Okay.
great. Mm-hmm. Thank you, SD. That's a beautiful song. I believe that's a welcoming song, Cherokee welcoming song. Yeah, pretty sweet. And we welcome everybody tonight. Our topic is honoring grandmothers and asking Grandmother Earth. And I want to share with you my experience of honoring grandmothers by honoring the two grandmothers that raised me. And these grandmothers were from the oldest village here on the oldest mountain on Turtle Island. And there's a lot of things that, excuse me, I didn't understand as a child because we couldn't speak our language. We couldn't talk about our ways. We were required by law to assimilate. So we had to be so very careful in everything that we did. But we still gathered on the 50-acre farm that my mom grew up on every weekend in family. She was the youngest of 12, and we lived in our ways because it was the only ways that we knew. We didn't, we didn't do this carelessly. We just loved being together. And some of the natural ways that I recognized were more ingrained in these two grandmothers, one on each side, maternal and paternal. And they were different. And they recognized that I carried the same ways that they knew and that they shared from their heart. And some of the things that I'm now able to look back over my life and recognize as common ways of the feminine, of the grandmothers, they're the ones who taught me the plant medicine and the stone medicine. I always carried a little bowl around with me when I was a child, and I would fill it with plants and stones. And they were the ones that knew what I was doing. I'd get some funny looks from some other people, but they always encouraged and knew what I was doing, even though I didn't as a child. But this is the way I came in with the medicine ways. And my paternal, my father's mother, was again from that same area. And my grandfather was French Lebanese, so he was a direct descendant of Marie Antoinette. And in this lifetime, he was over all the clerks of court in the state of North Carolina. So he had a very influential role. He took that office from the county to the state government, and he had to travel to all the clerks of court offices to train people. And so my grandmother and I would go along, and we would gather the plant medicine. We would fill the trunk of the car with plants wherever we were. We had no land ownership concerns in that setting. And my grandmother was so enthusiastic. She loved finding the plants, recognizing the plants, taking out the shovel, digging them up, and burning the herbs and connecting to the spirit of the plant and filling up the trunk of the car. But my grandmother, didn't really even think about things, and so I didn't either, like land ownership. But my grandfather said he would always go by the jail before he left the courthouse just to see if maybe we were in there. As we probably weren't supposed to go on people's land. If we saw people, we'd ask them and talk with them, They were always kind and generous, but plants belong to the people. And we knew that, and the plants knew that. And it wasn't a problem. He didn't ever find us in jail. So that was definitely one of the things I remember about that grandmother. And also the beadwork, the jewelry, the crafts. We dug in the creeks and found the clay, made our own pots, and fired them in the fire. And everybody looked around very cautiously and concerned to make sure nobody saw us doing all these things. They would kind of give us a screen of protection. And That's what we ask from the men. We ask them to protect us and to allow us to be our most feminine and to gather in our traditional and our ancestral ways. Prepare the soil for the garden if we're trying to grow in traditional ways. I mean, my grandmother and I put these plants everywhere. We didn't, have the obvious garden like the colonizer gardens. We had some mounds and we put things where they wanted to be, when they told us they would be happy with the sun and the water and the things that plants feed on, just like we do. And so, my other chosen grandmother taught me how to cook, how to take those plants and turn them into nutrition and food. We made the grape juice. We did grow the garden. My job was to walk on the spinach seeds because I was so light. I barely weighed enough to press the spinach seeds into the ground when I was a child. So that was how I honored my grandmothers, by asking them for what I knew their gifts to be, and the joy that it brought to me to be able to do these things with these two grandmothers and to spend all my time that I could with them. And I realized, that I spent more time with them than the other 20 something grandchildren. But everybody understood that because it was talked about when the women gathered in the kitchen and the men gathered in the periphery to protect them, to close the blinds, to hide what we were doing, that we were talking about our ways and practicing, our traditional grandmother's ways of recognizing the gifts that the child comes in with and honoring those gifts in the same way that we honor each other's gifts in community, by asking for them. We ask the person for the gifts that we see in them. And that is how we honor the grandmothers, and that is how we honor the earth. We ask her for the gifts that we need, and we see that she wants to share. And it's not the give me this, give me that, give me everything I want, give me, give me, give me. It's not that. It's sharing the joy that the earth brings to us when we connect barefoot on her soil, and we dance with the trees that dance with her, and we sing with the leaves on those trees, and we sing with the wind when they sing with earth together, and the birds. I go out every morning and that's what I do. I say hello to the sun, and I talked with the trees, and I really have been able to grieve with the trees that have come down in the hurricane, and still have not been able to find some of my favorite trees. Hopefully I'll know soon. And it's family. It's very, very close and supportive and loving kindness that only grandmothers can show, and directness and, upfront answers to questions in the grandmother's way. We all recognize it if we think back on our experiences with the examples of our own grandmothers, and also when we listen and connect with our sweet grandmother earth in natural ways. No dominion, no dominance culture. Listening, honoring, connecting with grandmother earth. And so our wisdom council and our grandmother's council prepared a message that we wanted to share during an event, a larger event that we did in the fall of this past year, just before the hurricane came here. And I've asked Pamela to read the the words that we came up with to share, and to ask you all to support us in these ways and in these values that we had identified by gathering in our grandmother's council with all who were there at that time. And Pamela, if you would please read those few paragraphs to us now.
The grandmothers sent me to nudge normal aside and make way for a return to natural. Remember, please, that natural moves in ways that are in balance. Nature seeks balance, and balance is in beauty. Can we redefine authority to include impeccable integrity and compassion of grandmothers? Can we seek their voice of guidance, sharing their experiences? Can we truly connect our heart to Grandmother Earth and walk with her in the most kind and gentle way possible? With every step, in every day, protecting and restoring her delicate balance. Can we honor, respect, and protect new life of children, animals, plants, minerals, water, and all that sustains this wave of humans? Reaching back to the beginning of this wave of humans, we all share ancestors and can learn to listen for their voice, returning old ways for new times. For example, foraging for wild food and sovereignty again. Can we call out to grandmothers who need to hear our call? Ask men to listen and invite women to speak. Sing and dance together in a community with myths and stories, as well as solitude and inner wholeness. Open our eyes and hearts to inspiration from direct experience as we walk in a centered, verb-based way. Learn to listen to ancient ancestors who have done their work and allow them to guide our unique process for healing ancestral wounds.
Thank you, Pamela. That was our last directive from the Grandmothers Council. And we feel very supported by the Wisdom Council, by Michael and Lenny and SD in particular, who are foundational here. And we thank you for honoring this collective request from our Grandmothers Council. And now I'll ask Patricia Aguirre from Brazil to share her thoughts from the Grandmothers Council as well. We're on our topic, honoring grandmothers.
I have a hard time talking about the grandmothers of my lineage because we are refugees from Bolivia, and we left Bolivia very early when I was very small, and we went to Chile running away, and then came to Brazil. So the connection, the direct connection with my grandmothers in Bolivia and in Chile, I only met them when I was older and they came to visit, but it was not something intense. However, what I want to share is my mother. I'm not talking about my grandmother, but my mother, which I unfortunately did not honor her as much as I should when she was alive, but she's the one that brought me into the world of nature. Nature was something that I carry within my cells because she loved to take me to the forest, to walk in the forest and be silent and be quiet and listen to the birds. And ever since I was small, she would, and amongst my brothers, I was the only one that really was, fell in love with nature. And she would, it was something very constant. And then after she died, I found out something amazing because she was very quiet. She was backstage. She was serving the family, caring for all of us, but she was backstage. She was doing her things. She was taking care of everything. So she's an example to me of someone who is there observing, watching, being present in silence. And then I found out after she died, unfortunately, that my heritage through her goes to the Mapuches. The Mapuche is a tribe, perhaps the most ancient here of South America, more than the Incas, more than others, the Mapuches of southern Chile. And who carries the voice there are the women, the machis. The tradition is passed from woman, and they're the ones that carry the thing. And when my mother died, my brother had this dream that we were all together in a boat, and she said goodbye, and she followed. We were on a boat, and then she followed into the ocean, you know, alone into the ocean. And I found out that the woman, that when they die in the Mapuche land, they put them in these boats, and they let them go in the the ocean. Excuse me, I'm dry here. Whoa, just to talk about that.
Yeah, I understand that, Patricia. Interesting that we weren't allowed to speak of our ways, and now when we do, we feel
Yeah, and
that.
then I have this impulse now to go visit the Mapuches in the southern part of Chile to because I've been to workshops and groups gatherings, and I have this connection with the Mapuches. It's not that I'm more with them than with the Quechuas or Aymaras from my tradition in Bolivia, but somehow through my mother, who was so connected to earth, to that I'm living here all, right now I'm all by myself in the middle of this amazing place, which I hadn't come because I didn't have the car that was broken, but there's no one here and miles and miles away, and it's just me, the birds, the creeks, the everyone that's there in silence. So I'm very connected and grateful to this woman. My mother, Victoria is her name, Victoria, who put me in connection with nature and honoring nature. And now I'm here, putting my hands on and following. And I know that Mother Pachamama, she's going to do what she has to do right now. Mother Earth is going to follow. There's not much we can do right now after all the mess we've created and all. And she's following her, and we have to prepare ourselves for that, and really be present and be really, you know, take care of what we can and not give up. But that doesn't mean that we're going to change much, because she has her way. She has her natural way of moving, natural, not artificial that, the system over here has. It's natural. So we just have to follow that and be with that closely. And well, anyways, this is just a quick sharing of something that I didn't have grandmothers uh, to like you did, Gail. But I think that I'm connected with the grandmother circle because of that. I know that we have a lot to, like my mother, how much she shared with us in silence, in a quiet way, in the love of caring without making a big issue about it, but just being present is what I feel is most important right now. Okay.
Thank you, Patricia. Yeah, we learn from example, not necessarily from the talk, but from the walk. Yeah, it's beautiful. So at this time, I'd love to ask SD to share a traditional story about a mother-daughter relationship and anything else, of course, that he would like to add on this topic at this time. Okay, check your mute. Yeah, unmute.
Okay. um,
Good, good.
well, you know, I've spent time with different tribes, and I was thinking about how uh, respect is a part of wise human discourse, and how much we miss that today. Um, I learned a lot at Standing Rock, some that was new and some that I had forgotten. But there was a bringing back of some of these things that have been lost because I heard said, never argue with someone who's older than you. You know, that person, uh, they may be a wise elder. And even if they're not a wise elder, they've walked on this Mother Earth for longer than you. And that's why what you should always remember to have respect for those older ones. And as a as I've grown older, it's become much more apparent to me how much disrespect there is for older people in this culture. Um, very derogatory terms can be applied to them. Because, but even young people can be elders. You know, I showed someone a photograph of myself with some tribal people. I said, this is me with some of the elders. And they said, well, some of them look like youngers. And I said, well, yeah, you know, it's not always based on age. And so when I was with the Shawnee, I heard a little girl addressed as grandmother. I said, how is that little girl a grandmother? They said, well, with us, it has to do with clans. Because in traditional indigenous cultures, there's some of that, there's stories behind these things that may be so unusual to outsiders. Like when I was with my tribe in India, I would say thank you. They would say no, no, don't. Because in Native American culture, thank you is very important. But these people were telling me, th- thanking us makes you seem like an outsider because you're one of us. So that's why I think it's very important to learn as much as you can about these cultures, especially cultures you know little about, to tread lightly, so that you can treat these people with the respect they deserve. Um, you know, in different cultures, there are um, people who are from history, that are very honored and respected. And with our Salagi people, you know, one of these people is a woman named Nanyehi, or Nancy Ward. And recently there's been an opera that has been uh, performed based on her life. It's called Nanyehi. And Nanyehi means she walks with the spirit people. And she was a leader and a peacemaker. Because when the white men first came and they were having meetings with the Cherokee, they mocked to them because they said, you have a petticoat government. You let women speak. And unfortunately, they had a lot of influence on some people. But in more modern times, Wilma Mankiller was a female chief who she made people respect women again and give them power. So today she is remembered.
Can you speak a little louder, SD, please?
So nowadays she is remembered very much for that and honored. So I think the matrilineal cultures have very much wisdom. When I first met the Mohawk, they would explain to people how mothers are life givers, females are life givers. It's good to give them power because they're less likely to go to war. It's less likely for them to make decisions whereby life is taken because they, as the bearers of life, will stand for life, for survival. I guess that's about as much as I can say right now. But thank you for asking me.
Yeah, thank you, SD. That's some beautiful, beautiful reminders. Very sweet. And at this time, I would like to ask our sun dancer, Lenny, if he would like to share on this topic.
For me, it's a bit of a personal journey too, because the words that were spoken there from the Council of Grandmothers is very deep and very powerful. We don't show, this Western culture doesn't show that stuff. I think of, how did the lineage used to get passed down here in Canada? If you were a woman and you married a white man, you were no longer an Indian. You're no longer First Nation. You lost all those rights. Your children lost all those rights. How, if you were a man, you got all the rights, and the children and the wife got all the rights and became native. It's like, that's a complete opposite where we should be. How disrespectful can you be? Now, 10, 15 years back, they changed it to a blood lineage. But for many years, that's how we treated our grandmothers. When I think of my own grandmother, it didn't matter how hard things got. It didn't matter if there was, in food or had to struggle in the house. The heart was always open and full of love, full of caring. That's what our grandmothers bring. I was sitting on a piece of land day before yesterday. This land is a low-lying area, and there's a lovely brook that goes through it. But it was clear cut years ago. And all that you see now is these standing dead trees in it. Sitting there, it brought me to tears. But it was the compassion for my mother that I felt. I felt the love that she brings there. That's what she brings to me. That's what she teaches me. that joy, that compassion for Mother Earth, for the land. So to me, it's, how can I do that? How can I've been brought up as a Westerner. How do I honor the grandmothers? And like Esty said, they're the life givers. They bring the life into the world. They were traditional ones that the tribes went to and said, okay, do we go to war? What's the best, the men would decide on what's the best way to fight the war, if that was the decision. But the woman, and it's much deeper than just them making the decision, because they were the best ones too. It's like, in this day and age, we don't even honor noontime in our women. Where do we sit and say, oh, that's the most sacred ceremony a woman holds, is that time of bringing life in and cleansing and getting the body being ready again to bring it in. What more powerful ceremony is there? I really don't know if there isn't one. That's creation in itself. Do we honor our women? Do we tell them, go do your ceremony, go find your peace, go be quiet. I will do all that's necessary to take care of you so you can have that time. No, in this day and age, they're supposed to go to work. They're supposed to be a man. They're supposed to do the very same things men do. So I know we need to honor that very deeply. Honor that life, that ceremony they have inside themselves. Because that's where their power comes from. That's where the compassion comes from. They go through that life-giving ceremony every month. Us men, we have to go to a sweat lodge or someplace to do a ceremony for that feeling of rebirthing ourselves. A woman doesn't need that. She has it within her. I always look inside myself. How can I help? And I would like to hear from the grandmother. If they hear on the broadcast here and say, oh, I remember a way of we were honored. Please write in, share it with us so we can share it to others, because that's the way to bring it back. The grandmothers out there know. I don't. I'm a man. I only know what I feel to be like. Thank you. Thank you, my grandmothers, for being here.
Thank you, Lenny. Beautiful acknowledgement. And Michael, would you like to share your thoughts with us, please?
Well, I think what I feel is so relevant to the words that everyone has spoken. So I just want to acknowledge that deep, resonant truth that is spoken into this council with authenticity and, like you said, Gail, with walk and understanding and wisdom, not just talk. And I really appreciated what Lenny said, because the year and a half I spent in Nevada, I was working with a Cherokee medicine person, intertribal medicine person, Rolling Thunder. And when I first moved there was no one to really do it, but he had me help serve the Moon Lodge for the women. So, part of me was like, well, isn't that something that women should be doing, and possibly within the tradition or not? But I realized for myself it was an important opportunity for a deeper understanding, like Lenny was saying, of that time of cleansing and birthing and a time where the women were honored and actually served so that they could focus on that spiritual medicine and the time that they were going through. So I don't really want to say too much more. I think everyone has said a lot, but I really, again, the words that Lenny spoke about having the opportunity and honored to help support that lodge. You know, there was a lot of teachings that came through that, and some things I can't put in words, but just luckily I had a very loving mother and grandmother, and it just helped me to understand in a deeper way that feminine, the sacred feminine, which, you know, for me is really connected to a lot of the teachings of white buffalo calf women of this ancient, you know, mother, sister, grandmother that came to bring the Chinopa and the important teachings to bring peace. And, you know, when she was greeted in a way that was, you know, not in a good way, you know, we found out that that warrior who approached her in that way really suffered, was turned potentially to ash and bone. But when she was received in a and honored in a sacred way, she brought big medicine. So that's all I'd really like to share. And thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, those are all excellent, excellent thoughts on the grandmothers and some things you all bring to mind, you know, the traditional ways in Lakota. For the Moon Lodge, we would sing to them. I can see that you'd be very good with that, Michael, honoring the Moon Woman with the songs that she requested. We would bring her anything she wanted, anything she asked for, bring her a blanket, make sure she's very warm and comfortable, and sing songs to her and share anything that she asked for during that time. And the spirit helpers that come in ceremony did the same thing. This is why the Moon Woman does not go into the lodge on her moon time, because the spirits come directly to her. She holds the power. She holds the connection with that moon time, and the spirits will come directly to her. And if she's in the lodge, it's overwhelming when all the spirit helpers come directly to her. And maybe Lenny would want to say a little more about that. I don't know if that's his tradition, but also the woman is already at an elevated temperature in her own cleansing and purification natural ways of the body. And so it is not the best for her health to be in the actual heat of the ceremony at that time. And this is a very controversial issue. There's so much misunderstanding around this issue. And so I really hope that people will understand this perspective and share it to clear up that misunderstanding. And you know, another thing that comes to mind in the matrilineal ways in our ancestral Salgiwe, the woman determined the clan. And if if the woman, you know, was of the particular clan, that's the clan the children would be of. And grandmother Raven Haley loved to say, well, honey, everybody knows who your mother is, but sometimes she don't even know who your father is. So they didn't count a lot on the father being around or being a part of teaching the children what they needed. So the mother's brother would stand up in ceremony and agree to teach those particular clan ways to the children of the union. And that was our marriage, you know. It was until the woman put the man's moccasins outside the door with his belongings. And at that point, he knew it was time to go home to his own mother, until another woman invited him into her life and her home. And that stability came through the mother's brother. And if the man of the people married outside traditional ways, married a woman outside traditional ways, then the long hair clan would bring the children into the ceremonies and the teachings of the ways of our people. They didn't leave the clan. They came in with the understanding that they needed to learn, because they wouldn't have that example from their mother. or her brother. And so that was dealt with in a good way. And a lot of these things are really dealt with in good ways. So I encourage you all to look back on the ways of these traditions and honor them and look deep, and you will see the ways that they honor Grandmother Earth. So please, please honor Grandmother Earth in every way that you can in these times. And would anyone else like to say anything before we ask for another song to close us out? Maybe gratitude song. Anything else that anyone would like to add?
Well, well, I was part of a discussion recently about um, the understanding of matrilineal as the difference of matriarchal. And since this is the Wisdom Council, I thought again, there's so much confusion and misinformation, and people make up their own meanings. I don't know if we want to speak to that for a moment.
We do, Michael. That's a very important point. Matrilineal says that property passes, clan passes, tradition passes through the woman. And matriarchal is a power game. It's saying that the pendulum that we've been swinging for so long in the colonizer ways go matriarchal, patriarchal, matriarchal, patriarchal. And what we need at this time is to find the middle ground, is to be equal cohorts. And Carl Jung discovered this in his work with our traditional ancestral people in the medicine ways of current psychology system. This is where they come from. And encouraged in his lifetime walking together as equal cohorts. Now, what that looks like in our ancestral way is that the grandmothers chose a war chief and a peace chief. And the war chief was responsible for protection. The peace chief was a helper in that he made sure the people had everything they needed for their daily life. So the best qualities of a man are to be a helper and a protector. We had that in two different positions, the peace chief and the war chief, that was chosen by the grandmothers and directed by the grandmothers in what they took out into the world, depending on what was needed. Yeah, would anybody like to add to that?
I just wanted to briefly acknowledge Patricia White and Minnie. I know that they've come to some of the grandmother councils in the past, but I know that when I met them in Palenque at the Eagle, Condor, and Quetzal gathering, they were very powerful women that were speaking to that and kind of calling out some of the ultra patriarchalness of how things were facilitated over the week and such. So, yeah, just acknowledging them.
Beautiful, Michael. Thank you for that. Minnie's our 86-year-old eldest grandmother. We don't see her often, but we love it when we do. And SD, did you have anything you wanted to share to that question regarding matriarchal and matrilineal? Or anyone? You're muted. You're mutable. Unmute. Pamela, can you help with that mute? See if I can help you. Does that help? You can tap on the little message that comes up now.
Oh,
No,
is that it? Is that okay now?
that's it. We hear you. Yeah.
The tribe I mentioned before in India is a very large tribe, and I was really inspired by meeting them and finding not only do we have many things in common, they're like sister tribes, Cherokee and Khasi, but every tribe there has a big yearly dance celebration, and they're all very different. With the Khasi, it was so beautiful. All the women dressed alike and all the men dressed alike. The women wore yellow, primarily yellow with flowers in their crown. They all wore crowns with flowers, and the men were more red and white and danced with swords. But the women danced in the center of a huge circle. Sometimes that might be thousands of people. And the men danced around the outside, going in a counterclockwise circle like Cherokees do in their dances. But it was explained to me the symbolism of that was that the women, the daughters dancing in the center, were that they represented what was most precious, that which must be defended, whereas the men danced around the outside in a very boisterous way. The women danced in a very soft and gentle way. And it went on for hours, and it was such a beautiful thing to see. That's all.
That is beautiful, ST. Thank you so much for sharing. And that is just like our traditional dances, you know, the Salagi dances, the circles around the fire.
Mm.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything to add before we sing ourselves out? No? Okay. And Michael, do you want to add anything? Questions?
I just want to say again, always appreciating the deep authenticity of this group. And there's always a part of me is like, oh, we'll reach out and invite, but I'm just glad that we're continuing to meet and put this message out and allowing space for those other grandmothers or wisdom council people that might show up to share in this discourse. But again, without an agenda, I appreciate that we're holding something very special, and I just honor it as sacred. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Michael. And we will do our outreach sharing in February, I think on the 9th. That will be inclusive to anyone who wants to join us. Our topic is a heart-based sharing this time. February 9th at 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 Mountain. So everyone is welcome then. And SD, can we sing that gratitude song together?
By the gratitude song, you mean, way, nay, nay, Yahweh,
Yeah,
nay. That one. Okay.
that one. Yeah.
Way, nay, nay, Yahweh, nay, oh.
thank you, SG. Yeah, love singing together. Okay, much love and gratitude to all of you for joining us these beautiful ways. Until again, Dona Toka Ani. Until again, next month,
Okay.
same place, same time.
All right.
Thank you.